is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. This is your first time tuning in. Welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I do say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Thursday, everybody. I got a very special guest for you guys here today. I always love talking to founders. I love talking about people who are in the trenches, building their businesses up, because there's just such a different insight. They move at a different pace than most individuals out there. And I just love talking to people who are passionate about what they do. So I would like to welcome Mr. Adam DeGroot with DeGroot Logistics on the show today. Adam, thank you so much for taking the time to join me this morning.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chris. Appreciate it.
So this is the first time you've been on. I always like to start the show out like this, man. How'd you get your start in freight? What brought you into the transportation industry?
Yeah, 38 years old. I feel like I've been in this industry for almost probably, say 32 of those. And my entrance into the logistics world was through the produce world. So I grew up, I represent, along with my brothers, a fourth generation of DeGroot's vegetable farms. So you grew up on a family farm, there really is no start date. You're tossed right in. And we're unique in that we're based in Illinois. We're a vegetable farm in Illinois. Not a lot of those. We're an hour south of Chicago. And we grow potatoes, peppers, cabbage, jalapeno peppers, bell peppers, some different squashes, you name it. Potatoes are the primary commodity. So we ship a lot of bulk potatoes for processing. This is like the cheapest commodity, vegetable commodity it's out there. So freight is very important, like having an airtight transportation program, being competitive on rates. Like, it's probably more important than other parts of farming and growing and shipping. So that's really how I got into it. There's a lot more, in between there we can dive into, but that was what the impetus was for you.
Starting out like that, and a lot of people, I think like there's this fallacy out there, Adam, in the entrepreneur world online, like, oh, you need 7 streams of income and all this other stuff out there to be successful. But, you guys have taken a very unique approach of like the vertical integration aspect of things. So, like when you're starting out with family farm, 4th generation, did you guys see an opportunity with your, like the brokerage side of things where like, we're not getting serviced at the level that we need to service our customers, where you're like, let's build our own company in-house and do it that way? Was that kind of what happened?
Yeah. So I graduated from Loyola University here in Chicago in 2010 and came back, took over the vegetable sales piece of the family business. My dad had started in 2002 a produce brokerage business. Mm-hmm. And that was very much, we're a seasonal farm. Customers want year-round supply. So we started in the off-season hustling and putting deals together. So I kind of stepped into that and kind of took that and ran with it. So I was doing that for 2-3 years, kind of built my book and, relationships, had a handful of other broker partners we're working with. And, I can pinpoint, it was May of 2013. I'm in our Georgia shipping office. It's 105 degrees out there. 2013, that was the first year in my, up to that point, short career in the produce and the transportation world where rates, jumped. Did not unlike the last 6 months, They were coming up post Great Recession. Rates were under $2 a mile. $2 a mile was kind of this like anchor in my mind, and reefer rates jumped from like $2 to $3 a mile in a few months. Didn't know that could happen. So I had a lot of contract business on the produce side that we're like, all right, we gotta deal with this. I was spending all my time on the freight management piece. So saw an opportunity, we worked with a lot of farms. Some of them had their own private fleets. We were running backhauls with them. It was pretty clear where the gaps were in the market, and pretty clear that our expertise and knowledge in the produce world was an advantage. So that July, I started DeGroot Logistics, brought in a good friend of mine, college roommate. He's our COO today. First couple of years was figuring out what the hell we were doing. It's very much, we didn't have any prior experience or training in another brokerage. One of the things that's part of our DNA now, it's like we still to this day, we're a shipper too. We understand, especially in produce, like what goes into the production economics of a farm, how challenging it is to kind of manage the shipping day to day, the coordination between the guys in the field, scouting, what do we got to move, sales, getting orders, scheduling stuff, loading. I've loaded, for many years, like worked in our warehouse loading trucks. So like understand that there's incredibly, in the produce world, it's just kind of unique. Like everybody's selling to customers larger. Even if you're the largest farm in the country, you're selling to companies much larger than you. You're loading, like the on-time delivery expectation is 100%. There's no room for error. There's a lot of freight out there where 85, 90%, can get by. It's not produce. So, if somebody's got a late truck, doesn't make it in during hours, you're waiting to pick, somebody's not having dinner with their family to load that truck, So it's like just living that, understanding that, I think sets us apart. But that's where we got started with it. So 2013. Yeah. 13 years, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears.
No, man, it's how do you think that that's an error more people in this industry make than not, is kind of trying to do too much, right? Like the produce world fascinates me. Like I've moved a couple of loads. Like I'm not even going to act like we do it because we don't like currently, but back in the past we did. And I have guys come on this show all the time that just do produce. So like a good buddy of mine, Cody Kaler with A&Z Trucking here out of Arizona, he comes on. Like it's such a different world. Like it's a foreign language to me. Like if I called into one of these places and tried to like sell my service, I wouldn't even know what the hell to do, right? So do you think that causes more headwinds for people who are trying to build a book of business because they're going after everything as opposed to educating themselves on a certain niche? Or maybe it's just like full truckload food and beverage entirely as opposed to going after everything.
Yeah, it's definitely a niche. It definitely makes sense. I mean, a lot of the operators, a lot of shippers in the space are pretty loyal, to their folks, because like they understand like the nature of this is not like consistent volume day in, day out, week in, week out. Loading times are longer, temperature requirements. Like you need drivers that are competent, that understand, like in the same way that we have shippers that value folks like us that know produce. Like we have the same thing with carriers. Like there are carriers, there are drivers that are expert in produce, and there's ones that aren't. And the problems start when if somebody's diving into something new, it doesn't matter what it is. Like there's a learning curve. Learning curve can get pretty expensive pretty quick. Claims incidence is higher in this space. We've tried to take a lot of those, reasons why it's harder and kind of weaponize it and like turn it into an advantage for sure. So there's a number of ways we've done that, but yeah, it definitely, I'm not going to knock somebody for trying to do too much. We do a lot of different things over here, but in terms of what you focus on, there's a lot of food and beverage commodities and kind of, segments that are very similar to produce in a lot of ways. We move a lot of protein. Like there's just aspects of the way those markets work that are analogous to produce. But yeah, there's always long-term planning and demand planning, supply planning. But then when you get into the weeds, like day to day, I mean, you could have we had a crazy storm move through, 2-3 days ago. The plan changes. Like we're digging potatoes out there. Like you can't do that when there's a certain amount of, precipitation that you got. So it's a lot of coordination. Plans change all the time. That's what, everyone kind of looks to COVID and the craziness of COVID that upended a lot of supply chains. And I remember when it rolled around, like the produce industry, it was just another year. This is just, there were unique, different kind of challenges that people hadn't faced before, but it was not, I wouldn't say it was necessarily more or less chaos than a normal year in produce, to be honest.
Yeah. Because it's like, I look back over these last couple of years and, the market doesn't necessarily like it's not as volatile as I think people out there are trying to sell you on, right? When I strip it all away, like I'm not saying that there aren't challenges. I'm not saying that there aren't pockets of capacity that are, issues at times and stuff like that. But the market has essentially performed the exact same way minus the COVID year overall throughout the entirety of my career in this industry. And it's like, I'm looking at the way things are going right now, where a lot of people are selling on fear, right? High diesel prices. Look at all this capacity is leaving the roads and all of this stuff. And I'm like,
headlines.
I haven't seen anything yet, right? Like, because we pick up in, I don't want to call them obscure markets, but like they're like 100 miles outside of major metropolitan areas. These are the first ones that are affected when there is an actual tightness in capacity. And we haven't seen a drop, at least a noticeable drop, that has been out there. So it's like, I look at a lot of the situations that you experience as a business owner, and it is one of those things where it's like customers want that confidence that like, hey, if there's like, we got you covered. We've been here before. We know how this operates.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I think to echo your point, like the headlines, a lot of the volatility comes in the spot market, and the spot market is much smaller than the contract markets, It's just part of, every shipper does their best to plan around like, how do we get all this, as much freight as possible, plan pretty far out. But like, again, there's always this, it might be under 10% of the total freight volume spot oriented. I don't know. It's higher in produce for sure, but same in produce. I mean, it's obviously by definition all picking up in remote locations. You get, in a tight market, what we've seen, there's just certain attributes or like types of freight, like bulk potato, that there's going to be a little premium in a tight market when carriers, drivers have options. The ones that make the trailer dirty require washouts, require a little more time unloading. It gets a little harder. So you solve for that by, doing more drop trailer programs or like trying to get more dedicated, like those kind of solutions in place. And sourcing, is what we've seen. I think one of the most dramatic things that's hit like long haul, I would say has been lately in the reefer world, like a little more disrupted. So like a lot of these produce commodities, freight markets kind of set, like there's this global price. We don't get to, just because freight's higher, charge more to customers. Like there's a global price, there's competition among all sorts of different regions. So like the flows of where, potatoes shipped from will change based off of that over the medium term. And that's what we've seen. I mean, I think we're a beneficiary in our produce business, being based in Illinois, the different commodities we do when freight's higher, because a lot of produce moves from the West Coast to the East Coast. And every buyer out there now that has, 4-digit mile, routes are like, they're trying to figure out how they can get stuff more locally. Shelf life's tight on stuff. So like we're trying to position ourselves around that. But again, these waves are always crashing where it's like, this isn't like an abnormal thing. It's always like this to some extent. Yep.
How has technology helped you guys get in front of a lot of these things, right? Because, I think like at this, I think a lot of businesses underestimate how much data they actually produce out there. So how has technology helped you guys out in instances like you're describing right there?
Yeah. So we've done a lot more. I think the landscape's changed in the last year, just the whole buy versus build, question. It's the tools are out there to build some really cool stuff for non-technical people, like myself. And we really try to embrace that. And we've approached, just to speak on AI, briefly, in a way where a lot of different models. One of the neat things about the logistics industry is you take 100 brokers, there's 100 different models. Like there's obviously similarities, but there's a lot more differences than people realize from the outside looking in. We've tried to leverage AI to really, we don't want to replace that, our team interfacing with our carrier partners or our customers. Like that'd be crazy. I think we're looking to leverage it in ways where we can just make our people more productive, generate more inbound for them. So that's rolling that way. Part of the family of companies, we try to be pretty tech forward. And two of the ways we've done that, we talked about claims incidents earlier, and the perishable nature of produce. Like we spun off out of our claims department, a service called FreightSOS. And the idea there is, if you're going to be proficient in the produce space, you better be pretty good at handling, exceptions when things go wrong. So it's kind of like this idea of a routing guide for when things go wrong, when exceptions happen. So there's a lot of produce out there that gets rejected for whatever reason. We try to, and not just produce, it started with that, but it really has evolved to anything food and beverage. We're trying to find the highest and best use of that product, given that there's a short shelf life. Trying to keep food out of landfills. They're expensive every day. Way too much stuff goes to landfills. There's alternative ways to dispose of product, and in agricultural networks, we build out some pretty robust networks for that, just to mitigate costs too. So yeah, there's a lot of it's the food reclamation stuff, just, we don't want to be a broker, that when there's a rejected load, even if it's not our carriers doing or our doing, if it's something on the shipper side, we want to be part of the solution. We want to help that customer figure out. We've got a ton of instances where we've actually achieved a higher value after a rejection than the original value of the shipment, which is kind of crazy that can happen. These markets are pretty efficient, but with things changing so quickly, they're pretty inefficient too. It's a positive thing for our carrier partners. If we can, the worst thing in the world is, and this happens all the time, it happens to us too, but you get a driver who's stuck with a rejected shipment for days. That's not a good thing, there's again that human cost to some of these issues that are just part of the business. So we're pretty hands-on with that. We try to come up with solutions even when we're not asked to. I think that's if we want to be we're not the biggest broker out there. We want to be one that punches above our weight class in all ways. So we're always looking to embrace where can we go the extra mile? Where can we do what's unexpected of us, to help somebody out of a pinch.
Yeah. I look at it now where technology, your AI automation and everything, it has completely leveled the playing field at, I don't know if enough people are even really comprehending at this time, where it's there's going to be a point in time here, Adam, in the near future where there's going to be a 10-person operation that's doing hundreds of millions of dollars in freight transactions every single year because of AI and because of automation. And, it's I look at it where it's the technology pieces that are out there. I think the one piece of technology that is going to be here to stay for a long time is the TMS, right? Because I don't know how you replace a TMS, because shippers use it, carriers use it, brokers use it. Is it going to evolve? Is it going to change? Yes, I could see that be because I look at it as that's the backbone of every single transportation operation out there. I could see those evolving out into having more offerings outside of building the loads and stuff like that. And you look at some of these new pieces that come out here. I look at with where things are at today, and do you think there is any technology that has created a problem that didn't exist before?
Yeah. Interesting. Really interesting question. I try to be, I think part of my role as CEO here at DeGroot Logistics is to keep an eye on the frontier freight tech and what's out there. And there are things that, there's been some new kind of areas that, and solutions, automating appointment scheduling. That was one that it was really interesting, makes a ton of sense. The speed of appointing loads is important. The precision of doing it right, in some ways is an art. And so it doesn't that didn't seem to me like an area where we need to be the first adopter of let's see how it plays out. It's going to improve over time. There's stuff that I'd love to be the guinea pig on, to be part of a early solution. We were one of Highway's first dozen customers or so. And that was clear from the demo. It was this is going to change the world. This is great. I think one area where, specifically to answer your question, where it's been counterproductive, this is probably more true a few months ago, but in the past couple of years, freight pricing, this is, again, I'll qualify this. This is more true the end of 2025. The amount of pricing automation tools that were out there, I think we got a little far ahead of ourselves. The idea that anybody could come in a small shop, and be able to price any freight anywhere all the time accurately and efficiently is a dangerous thing. You take that coupled with private equity fueled growth of brokers, and bad things happen. I think that honestly the the pricing story has probably been the reason some pretty big shops have blown up. But what's so interesting about the pricing world, which is probably one of the most essential ones, there's so much more. Like you don't plug in a zip code to zip code and get the market rate. There's so much more to the story to that. It's how much time's built in the load. The biggest thing we're tackling with Doc 411, which I think is a fascinating problem, is what are the parameters and profiles, and what's the score? What's to be expected of that facility you go to? You can quote a Chicago to Dallas, and that might be, say it's $3.50 a mile or something like that. Mm-hmm. Depending on the practices of that shipper, it might reasonably be a lot more, it might be a lot less. And we're in this world where shippers put out RFPs, all that pricing is pretty much point to point. They benchmark off of it. New folks that come in and bid on that freight that aren't familiar with they don't have the knowledge incumbents do on what to expect of these facilities. Dwell times, there's a main one. Can you drop trailers? Can you not drop trailers? Like everything else that goes into it. So they're bidding off a benchmark, some sort of pricing tool that is, different than reality. So you end up getting, there ends up being more turnover on lanes that have problems for a good reason. And nobody ever builds that experience too. So I think that's something we're tackling. We want, the key part of Doc 411 is getting reviews, getting drivers to review and give feedback on their experiences at facilities, because without taking into account that what to expect of that facility, pricing is incomplete. It's hard. You can't most accurately judge it. We're still in the produce world where, I'm kind of shocked, but kind of not. In 2026, I still hear like, oh, this is a produce load. There's no detention. Like, don't bother putting detention out there. Like, it works. Like, I don't think we're going to hear that forever. But man, does that create some of these, driver productivity and turnover problems that we all deal with on a larger scale too. So yeah, we're trying to really get in the weeds on details and data, and there's still a lot of precision and efficiency that can be gained from, and savings that can be gained from just having better data around lanes you're bidding on too. So
I think what you're building there at Doc 411, I've been saying this on the show for a long time. That is the piece of technology that will upend the industry. Because it's like, I'm like predictive analytics, forced rankings, because not all two loads are created equally, right? And how many drivers out there would rather take a Dallas to Chicago? And I'm not saying take cheap freight, for the love of God. Every time I say this, it always becomes a thing. Mm-hmm. Would they rather take a load for $2,000 where there's a 96% chance that they're going to be loaded and offloaded in an hour, or take the $2,400 load that there's a 90% probability that you're going to be held up for 5 or 6 hours at the shipper or the receiver, and it costs you business? Yep. I think that piece of technology, once developed and crash course through, because it takes a ton of data to do that, as you're building it, that will be the most valuable piece of technology to the trucking community that today does not exist in mass. You
won't see this in any sort of media or anything, but there's still so many areas where there are win-wins to be had between shippers, carriers, brokers, everybody. And like, to your point, that whole cheap freight, everyone looks at it as like a dollar per mile number or whatever number. And that's not how the world works. Like, carriers think of, when they're running their fleet, they're thinking like, what's my revenue per day? Like that, you take a Chicago to Cleveland run, depending on how it's scheduled, depending on what is even possible, that could be, you could have that truck tied up for 6 hours or 36 hours. Like, those are two different, that 6 hour freight, $900, $1,200, like, that might be cheap freight to somebody, but that's like might be productive. Whereas, $1,800 on that 36-hour scenario, like, that's cheap freight. Like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, there's way more to it that I think most people that are even in the industry, like, don't understand fully. But that idea, like, of appointing loads well is the art of being a freight broker. Like, I think it's something that we've always felt,
Yeah.
You gotta accumulate, and we work with shippers all the time to develop that. Shippers right out of the gate, like, don't think like that either all the time, especially if you got a lot of volume, like some of these large shipper, enterprise shipper teams relative to the amount of freight they move, they're incredibly efficient. So they need folks like us to help kind of guide them through that. And like, so much of it, the amount of data you have to have going into those conversations is substantial, but there's a tremendous amount of savings to be had by savings to the shipper while also achieving more productivity for carriers, more revenue per day for carriers too. So that's what we try to live in. We're looking for win-wins. We don't look at ourselves in that sense as like, what might be the common notion of what a freight broker is. We're just flipping loads and like that. So, and that's truly being a partner to both sides. And we're optimistic in that we think there's a tremendous amount of those win-win, opportunities out there too.
How do you get people to adopt that mindset, right? Like, cause I didn't have that mindset all the time when I was working for somebody, right? I was like, how do we make as much money as we can today? And then you just rinse and repeat that every single day. And what you don't realize is over a 12-month period, you actually cost yourself a lot more opportunities. But now as a business owner, I look at things approaching customers, approaching shippers with the fact that like I have to develop a win-win-win situation where the shipper wins, I win as the broker, and the carrier wins, where they want to continue to work in that ecosystem. How do you train that and get that out there to see the long term? The
mindset too is like freight, and this is a win for shipper or brokers and for carriers too. The freight has to be easy to sell. Like and that can come from appointments, that can come from grouping, lanes. If a shipper has a dozen lanes that ship a load a month in a relatively similar area, like they should be bucketing those in a bid. Like that's, you want the same driver, you want the same carrier hauling a lane over and over and over. Like you have to understand how they can build that into their plan, how they can plan around it. Like, so there's a lot of that kind of work we do for sure, but that's gotta be the mindset. Like you want to get the right outcomes. Like this freight, the freight you're trying to move cannot be undesirable for some concrete. Like there's just a certain amount of variables you got to solve for there too. So that's the name of the game, really. Yep.
Yeah, I think that education piece is missed out because it again, as somebody who's trying to build their business up, I understand the importance of opportunities that you're going out there. But one thing I think brokers might overlook is manufacturers. They're not transportation companies. They might not be aware of transit times. They might not be aware of certain rules, regulations, and stuff out there. Best days of the week to ship, all of that stuff. So it's like that. That's when you're working with a real transportation professional. We're coming to you with those solutions. Like, hey, why is this shipping here? Why can't it ship here? Hey, these two partials that you're sending out going into the same region, let's do one pick, two drop, full truckload. We can bring you cost savings that way. And I think that is, again, people are overlooking that because they're looking at the transaction and how much money can I make in this situation. Again, I'm a capitalist. I love making money, but I want to bring efficiency out there to the market because I think long-term, I want that loyalty from my customers where they know no matter what, Chris and his team is putting their best interests at hand and into consideration when we're making these decisions.
Absolutely. Just to kind of dig into one aspect of that too. We're in a world now, everyone's looking towards brokers. Like what are the do's and do nots for what you can do from a liability perspective, this post-Montgomery world we're in. And there's a lot of freight out there that's not on time. And it's not because of any carrier or driver error. It's because a shipper was delayed in loading. And then, so there's these constraints. Like there needs to be more of it's not willingness to pay attention or pay some of this stuff, but like more transparency. This is what we're doing at Doc 101. Light needs to be shined more so on these facilities that are below industry average, in terms of not just loading time and unloading time, but their bathroom situation, like their ability. There's a lot of facilities out there that a driver gets unloaded at 2 a.m. and they say, get the hell out of the yard. You can't sleep here overnight. It's like, these things are going to cost shippers more over time. And like, we want to be part of the solution to really drive some improve behavior among that, I would say, because where we could bank on having a lot of extra drivers in this country for many years, like those days are over, and maybe they're coming back, but you got to assume they're not. So that's what we're working on. That's how we look at, the challenges, the opportunities ahead for sure.
No, Adam, I love it. Thank you so much for your time today, man. I really appreciate you coming on and talking about what you're building over there. How does anybody reach out to you guys to find out more about what you guys got going on?
Yeah, great question. Shoot me an email, Adam D at DeGrootLogistics.com. Happy to throw it. I could give you a few others, but one will probably suffice. Yeah.
Perfect. Adam, thank you so much. If you guys can find Adam or DeGroot's family of companies out there, hit me up. I will gladly put you guys in contact with them. That's going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you got value in what you heard and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the show, you guys. And if you're feeling ambitious, rank it on iTunes and Spotify, because if you see value, your network's going to see it as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And we'll be talking to you soon.
Came back with a bang. Window down, yelling out money, anything. Hey, ooh, got the foot on the gas. Pedal to the metal when I'm getting to the